Hello, all. How are you guys doing? Happy Saturday. So, I wanted to do a little bit of a deep dive in lesson design. I don't know if anyone's here, but this will be recorded. Um, so, I wanted to go over sort of, how to teach multilingual learners, specifically vocabulary, just to sort of bring it all together, the research and apply it into a lesson design. I know a lot of my videos have been very generic and general, and they go in different directions. And I'd like to just stay, focused on what I'm an expert in. So that's where we're headed here. I went to the gym this morning, so I feel pretty good. And I took care of stuff with my car. So I'm pulling up a lesson right now that I'm going to share with you. And it's pretty generic, but I did want to go over it with you just to sort of go over the pitfalls and go over, how to apply it. So this is on feelings and emotions, and it is geared towards grades three through 5. My particular area of expertise is high school, but I do have a little bit of experience with grades 3 through 5, because when I was supervising teachers through the university, I was observing them, so I remember a lot of that stuff from observing other teachers. So I'm going to share this screen with you and and kind of go over let me see. Again, this is all kind of new to me in terms of streaming and everything. Let me see. It needs to come up. Window. Oh, there it is. Okay. So as you can see, so here's a lesson on feelings and emotions, right? So it's called Vocabulary Development Lesson for Multilingual Learners. So this is a formal lesson plan. This is the type of lesson plan you want to create for your observer. So you have the grades 3 through 5, you have the duration, you have the subject, ELA, SEL, and then these are emerging and bridging. And then you have the learning objectives using 8 emotion words correctly in context. And then you're going to match the English vocabulary to home language equivalents, express emotions in speaking and writing, and recognize emotion words across 4 plus languages. So obviously that's a lot of learning objectives. So for this, what I would do is only focus on 1 or 2 objectives. And then you have to word it by saying students will use 8 emotion words correctly. Students will, you choose. And you do want to make sure it is standards based. Students will match and so forth. And then you kind of want to modify this. That's a little bit too much for an SEL class. So then you want to put in, what materials you need, right? So you need vocabulary cards, an emotion word wall or anchor chart. So you can do that. You can buy one of those real cheap at a teacher store, or even online. And then you want something for students to write in, not necessarily, journals or notebooks are great, or they can do it online in their Chromebooks, a little journal thing, in case students can't afford, a notebook. And then, little whiteboards and exit slips. So here it even tells you what standards it aligns to, which is awesome. And then here you have the lesson opener. Now this is really the key, the hook, right? Your opener is always a hook. And realistically, I would do the opener while you're taking attendance, and it shouldn't be something too hard. So you're going to display, the 8 emotions. You can do them in emojis, and they can draw pictures, or you be real flexible with this. So, excuse me. You're going to tell them to look at the faces and ask them what they see, what feelings do they think each one shows, and do they have a word, for this feeling, like in their home language. So this is where you're hooking them, right? You're accessing the things, the words that they're familiar with. So, and then you can let them write for like 5 minutes. And again, it does validate their multilingual identities and activates their prior knowledge, which is important, right? You want to start with what they know. Always start with what they know, because it helps them become familiar with what you're going to teach them, right? So activate and build background. So introduce a lesson objective in student-friendly language. So you're going to post on the board, today we're going to learn 8 English words for feelings. We also see how these words look and sound in other languages. And again, you can modify this. You can even translate it, right, in their home language. So you're going to briefly preview the vocabulary list using the multilingual vocabulary table on the next page. You're going to point out cognates, words that look or sound familiar or sound similar across languages. For example, happy, feliz, Spanish, Portuguese, not a cognate, but emotionally clear. And then you have triste, Spanish, French, Portuguese, sad, that's a direct cognate, and so forth. And then here's your vocabulary instruction. So you're going to use this table to guide direct instruction. For each word, 1, say it out loud, 2, show the emoji, give a sentence, and 4, invite students to share the word in their language. And you could post this up on the wall, which is great, or up on the board, or up on the overhead. So structured input, do, we do, I do, we do, right? This is key. So you do, right? You model, and then you do it together, and then they do it independently eventually. So you're going to model the following pattern for each emotion word, then invite choral responses, choral meaning together. So you're going to say the word and point to the emoji, and then the students repeat it. And then you're going to use it in a sentence. And then you're going to ask them, how do you say happy in your language? You're going to record the responses on the anchor chart. And again, you don't necessarily, you can do this on an overhead where you can draw. I know I have an overhead projector where I can write on it with my fingers. You can do it on the board. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be scientific. And then you can repeat all 8 words and then allow for 1 to 2 each, for 1 to 2 minutes each. And then you have the guided practice, right? So you have the vocabulary card match, partner work. This is where kids work together, right? So pairs receive 2 sets of cards, English emotion words and translation cards, in their shared home language or teacher chosen language. And then the students take turns flipping and matching. So you can do the vocabulary card match. You can do the fill in the blank sentences. This is independent. So you have a word bank, all the different emotions, and then you have the sentences. So you can say Maria felt, and then happy or sad or angry. And you can have them translate these words into their home language, and then they can practice with the English language. So you can do Spanish, or whatever language you're teaching them, Arabic, French, whatnot. And then, they can practice with this. You can give them the whole lesson to practice with all of it. And then you can do the closer. Bring everyone back together, ask 2 to 3 students to share a sentence from activity 2, and you can celebrate their home language. And then you could say which emotion word was easiest to remember and why. Did any word look similar in 2 different languages, and what does that tell us? Why is it helpful to know emotion words in more than 1 language? And then there's your exit ticket. Write 1 sentence using an emotion word from today's lesson. You can have them do 1 or 2 sentences, 1 in English and 1 in their home language. That's honoring their home language, honoring their identity. You don't have to do everything in here, but you can definitely, have them practice for a few minutes. And then there's some notes. And then if it works, great. You can reflect on the things that worked. And then if the things need tweaking, then you tweak them. And I think this is a great way to sort of, help students, learn words, right? And you could modify this for high school easily. Instead of doing emotion words, you can do, you can change, obviously, you can have to change the standards, but you can do academic vocabulary. And it's the same process. You can still use emojis. It's still fun. And you can activate and build background by asking them where these words come up in their history classes, in their science classes, in their PE classes, and then do the same thing. I'll go ahead and attach this lesson to the links above or below. I'll pin it so you guys have it. But I think this is a great way to sort of, introduce vocabulary to multilingual learners and to use, the research in my books to sort of help you apply it and implement it. And again, everything in my books is modifiable. You modify it to your students, to the students that you have, so that, they understand, how, whatever it is that you're teaching them. And it could be done for math, it could be done for science, it could be done for PE, it could be done for anything. But I do think it's a great way to sort of do that. So that's all. And this was really quick. So, if you want to know more, let me know. But anyway, have a great Saturday. See.